Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Cheryl Elston. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all those understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Cecil George Bird. Cecil Bird was born on the 27th of May 1919 in Geraldton, Western Australia, the son of Albert and Ellen Bird. Bird grew up in a large family surrounded by siblings and step-siblings. By the time he joined the militia in August 1940, he was unemployed. Having served as a sapper with the 7th Army Troop Company for 8 months, on the 29th of April 1941, Cecil Bird enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force, the full-time volunteer force that could be deployed outside of Australia and its territories. Before joining the AIF on the 2nd of April, Bird had been found absent without leave and was confined to barracks for a week as punishment. This was a sign of things to come. Bird would continue to fall foul of military discipline throughout his service. In May, Private Bird joined a training battalion at Claremont before a period of pre-embarkation leave. In June, Bird was again found absent without leave and fined. On the 9th of September, he embarked from Fremantle bound for overseas service. On arriving in the Middle East, Bird was immediately evacuated to hospital with an upper respiratory tract infection and septicemia. Having recovered and being treated, he returned to duty. On the 1st of November, he was charged with failing to appear at a place of parade and conduct to the prejudice of military discipline. As punishment, he was confined to barracks yet again for 5 days and fined. In early January 1942, Bird was taken ill with parotitis, an inflammation of the salivary glands. In and out of hospital until May. At the end of May, he joined the 2nd 28th Battalion. Comprised of volunteers from Western Australia, the 2nd 28th Battalion had defended Tobruk before being evacuated to Egypt, later moving to Syria and then to Lebanon for rest, training and garrison duties. By July 1942, the war in North Africa had become critical for the British forces. The Germans and Italians had reached El Alamein in Egypt, dangerously close to Alexandria. The 9th Division, which the battalion was part of, was rushed to the area and held the northern sector for almost 4 months, as the British 8th Army was reinforced for a new offensive. Leading elements of the 9th Division arrived on the front on the 7th of July and made their first attack 3 days later. The 2nd 28th arrived that day and were involved in the next attack on the 17th of July. 10 days later, the 2nd 32nd and the 2nd 43rd Battalions moved inland, fighting along the ridgeline and approaching Ruin Ridge. Just after midnight on the 27th of July, Bird's battalion attacked Ruin Ridge. By about 1 a.m, it was on the feature, but things were starting to go wrong. The Germans were attacking the Australians from rear positions. 3 company commanders were wounded, and many of the vehicles that should have brought forward ammunition had been destroyed or damaged. With the battalion increasingly cut off, an attempt by British tanks to relieve it was abandoned after 22 vehicles were knocked out. Shortly before 10 a.m, enemy tanks began moving in on the Australians from 3 different directions. Alpha Company was overrun, and the battalion's commander had no other choice but to surrender. The Australians were rounded up and marched through the British artillery barrage, resulting in yet more casualties as they moved behind the German lines. The battalion suffered heavily at Ruin Ridge. 65 officers and men from the battalion and its support units were killed or wounded. Nearly 500 were captured and became prisoners of war. From all those who participated in the attack, only 92 men remained. 23-year-old Private Cecil Bird had been with his unit less than 2 months, was initially listed as missing in action. With no further news of his fate, he was later presumed dead. With no known grave, today he is commemorated on the Alamein Memorial, along with almost 12,000 Commonwealth Force members who died during the Second World War. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Cecil George Bird, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.